Hey gang! So you'll notice by this gorgeous creature that I'm currently knocking around in the current PTU. Given the recent drama, the fact that SitCon is real close, i.e. is probably just a few weeks after that, and 4.0, at least in theory, is scratching at the door. You might think that I'm most excited about the new ships and concepts that'll be dropping in the nearish future. Like the rest of the community, of course, I get excited by ships, but honestly, I have enough ships, and the ship I really want isn't even in the game, and probably won't be for a while. But I'm not bitter. So, what am I getting really excited about with the coming of Pyro? Clothing styles. Yeah, that's right. This is going to be a Starbie episode. Let's get this. Yeah. We're all here for the ships, myself included. But honestly, there's a lot of games out there with cool starships. Eve, Elite Dangerous, Homeworld, even Starfield. Sorry, that last one hurt to say. But outside of that last one, the real difference is the fact that in Star Citizen, you are a character piloting the ship, not the ship itself. In Star Citizen, we have a tune that represents us, and the options to customize those tunes are finally realizing the dream of what they showed us a few years back. I mean, this is the next generation of character generator, and we might have it in our hands in a week or sooner, maybe. If you feel like hopping into the PTU right now, at least you can play with it right now. The kind of visceral fidelity and immersion is typically reserved for first-person action or adventure games, not MMOs, or soon-to-be MMOs, Robert's willing. And granted, not every player is into this aspect of the game, and that's fine. But for those of us who are, having a character that looks the way we want is kind of a big deal. To this point in Star Citizen, the character creator has largely been an afterthought, something that CIG knew was important, particularly for Squadron 42, but took a back burner to things that were seen as a bit more important, like the engine actually working at better than 15 frames per second. But now, as I hoped in my earliest vids on the subject, it seems like the last big logjam is slowly getting sprung loose. And one of those logs rumbling down that river is all those features that will allow us to make the tune we want. Granted, there's some things missing, like height and weight. SC still feels like a universe of clones, but CIG is finally saying that this tech is possible, rather than doing some hand-waving and mentioning metrics. I said a while ago that I didn't buy that explanation thanks to my own experience with character modeling and animating and IK systems, but I did buy that it wasn't a priority for CIG back then, or probably right now. But anyways, now we're at a point where Squadron 42 isn't chewing up all the dev time. So now they can focus on what I think and hope is a more fun project, at least for the character art team, fleshing out the character of the verse. And the best way to do that is with the people who live in it. As far as faces and hair goes, though, I'm hard-pressed to think of another game that has better-looking options, at least the ones that are in the PTU right now and that will be getting into PU very shortly. While it's not quite as customizable as other games, you can still make some abominations, and they aren't completely unrealistic at that. Even the weirdest thing I've created in the SC character creator is still a person that I wouldn't be shocked to seeing riding the light rail here in Seattle on a late night. As a player, I've always leaned more towards the grittier locations. During the brief window when Delamar was in the game, I would always make my way to Levski and make it home. Nowadays, I mostly land my butt at Lorville or Grim Hex for a given patch. I always leaned away from the Star Trek safe, sterile, sanitized universe and towards the settings that seemed a little more, for lack of a better word, teetering on the edge. Think Mos Eisley in Star Wars or Blade Runner, especially Blade Runner. I mean, there's a reason why I want them to make a couple shady street level areas of ArcCorp one day. Anyways, outside of the height and weight thing, at least the faces of the verse are becoming more diverse. CIG will always be in a balancing act with the amount of assets they can have on the screen at one time, and players will always take precedence over NPCs. But when they're present, those NPCs will do a lot to tell the story of a place, to lock that setting into a certain type of archetype in your head. To this point, it seems like CIG has mostly attempted a tier 0 of this. You go to Orison, for example, and you're going to generally see people dressed in suits and those fancy geodesic pattern clothing. You pop over to Lorville and you're going to see a few bagheads, which you notably won't see at any other location, but this thing is still kind of limited. And that makes sense given the current state of the game. But one day I'm hoping we see a little more nuance. And it seems like we might be getting some of that with Pyro. So what do I mean by nuance? Well, take the gangs of Pyro. You go to a certain station, you should be able to see at a glance that a fair number of NPCs are dressed in a certain way, look a certain way. You would expect the clothing of the destitute areas to look more desperate. I would hope that one day we'll start seeing homeless people in places like ArcCorp, like turn a corner and there's a tent set up in an alley, that sort of thing. Cyberpunk, to its credit, was very good at this. And of course, this wouldn't be a Starbie episode if I didn't talk about the actual clothing that are coming down the pike. Again, my style is more akin to Blade Runner than Star Trek. And while there's a couple options to dress my character in that style, it's literally a couple options. A jacket and Grimhex, boots and Lorville, you get the idea. Most of the clothing looks like something you'd see in, say, Fifth Element than an Alien. And Aliens was what I want. But Pyro? Yeah, Pyro seems to have that vibe. I mean, a lot of these have been hiding in the background of these trailers for years now, basically since they started the road to Pyro, but we haven't seen them in the game, not yet. And it's not hard to guess that the barrier to those styles coming in is Pyro itself. They're waiting on Pyro to drop. I'm waiting for the verse to show its seedy underbelly, and that seems to be coming with Pyro. Oh, I think there's obviously some areas of Stanton that will be backfilled with these styles, but that'll probably be after Pyro and those assets drop. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the ships, the settings, the planets, the moons of Pyro, but probably just as important, at least to me, is the vibe that these systems will bring to the verse. So how about you? Do you care how your tune looks, or do you just hit randomize a few times and call it good? Do you run around in the sperm suit, or do you have a specific flight suit you like to wear before you roll out into the verse? Am I the weirdo? Let me know down below. That's all I have for this one, gang. Catch me next time.